Hello, welcome everyone. I'm so excited to start this journey in the 6570 Family Project podcast. And let me just tell you, my name is Nellie Harden. If you don't know me yet, we are going to get to know each other really well on this journey. And I just want you to picture this as you and I sitting on the front porch of some beautiful Southern home and maybe sitting on some rocking chairs, sipping some iced tea, and having some really good conversations about family and building family, what that looks like, what it means, and what we can do to be even better tomorrow than we were today. That's what this is all about. And I thought for the first episode, you probably want to know a little bit of who I am and who this person is that's going to be talking to you about this and getting into these tough conversations and being very real with you. So I am just going to spend some time telling you my story. So sit back, just relax, sip your iced tea, and take a listen. So when I first had my kids, it might have been like you too. We have 4 kids. I have 4 daughters right now. Today, they're 16, 13, and 11. Yes, I have my middle 2 are twins. The middle 2, right smack dab in the middle, are twins. I tell you, when I had I had a 2-year-old, and no, I guess I had a 4-year-old, 2-year-old twins, not even 2 yet. And then I was telling people, hey, we're having a baby. They're like, are you crazy? But yes, I have 4 and 4.5 years, and all teens and tweens right now. This is actually, we are headed into a season where I don't have an elementary schooler for the first time. I have all middle and high schoolers, which is kind of crazy. But when I first had my kids, I was in total survivor mode. I don't know if any of you can relate. You might be shaking your heads right now. But I was in total survivor mode, and just making sure that they were alive for bedtime every day was like, awesome. Check the box. That's great. You did it, right? But another pat on the back and put my cape away at the end of the night. I did it. But we really had a huge wake up call in 2010. So at that point, my husband had been going through drug therapies and physical therapies and different things for a heart condition that he had, that put him into the hospital suddenly in 2008. But by the time 2010 came around, we really had extinguished all of our possibilities that we could do. And we only by 2010, we really extinguished all the possibilities that we could do. And we really only had one option left, and that was an experimental heart surgery. And so it was Earth Day 2010. And we sat there. I sat there. My husband was in surgery. And by the way, he's doing very well today. So he's still here. But I was sitting there with it's 2010. So I had a 5-year-old, probably a 4-year-old, because it was before birthdays, a 4-year-old, 2 2-year-olds, and a 6 7-month-old. And that's a very eye-opening experience to sit there and not know if I'm going to see my husband again or my kids are going to see their father again. Right? This wasn't totally unknown to me. I lost my father when I was very, very young. I was 1.5 when my dad died. It was a complete accident, but it was something that's always been with me, right? And I've always felt drive and motivation, and other things too, because of that. He didn't get to live his full life that he had. And I always, especially that day that I passed that, when my age passed that, I always felt that responsibility. But anyway, side note. So I was sitting there and there was a very big wake up call. And then as he's recovering after the surgery, just 5 weeks later, my 2-year-old, one of them, she was in what turned out to be non-fatal, but could have very easily been fatal, drowning accident in my in-laws' pool. And it was a surreal day, a big party, everyone's in the pool. And this person who we didn't even know at the time looked down and said, "Hey, is she okay?" She was just floating there. And we all grabbed her. It took us a while to get everyone's attention so that they could clear the way. I did, a total, Hollywood type style clear the table and gave my daughter CPR right there on that table. And after a couple of rounds, what seemed like an ocean erupted out of her and took her to the hospital. And she was okay. We had to monitor her for a year. She had a lot of fears that came from that right away. But we still stuck with it. And that recovery story is a whole podcast in and of itself. But my point is, we had some very big wake up calls that year. And we, sitting there after that, we knew time was just so limited and we wanted to seize the day of our family and from our family experience. And we knew we really wanted to set them up for big time success right as soon as, we could, because you just never know. You never know what's going to happen in life. So I was busy running around right after this, and I was checking all the supposed tos. I was checking all the boxes, but I was feeling a little unfulfilled, right? I was doing the gymboree classes. I was doing the piano classes. I was doing the gymnastics classes. I was taking them to swim lessons. I was getting them in the right preschools, like all the things that I was doing. I was playing with them very intently. I was teaching them how to read and write at home, all the things, but there was still something definitely missing. And in my own journey of personal development, so I come from a background in sciences and psychology. So psychology is a science. But anyway, I was in marine mammal science and behavioral work and psychology and went into veterinary work. And I actually retired from all of that just about a couple of months before my husband went into ICU for the first time. So it was a boom, 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 pretty crazy. But anyway, I knew how important personal development could be. I didn't know how much it could be for me. And there's a big difference there. But I started meeting people that were fulfilled, especially in their later years. I really started diving into their lessons, right? They were leaders and mentors and readers, right? I had never been a big reader before, but I was like, oh, all these books. I was just eating it all up. They were learners, they were teachers, and and I mean all became my mentors. I saw thriving and not coping in families, right? I saw fulfillment, not unfulfillment in families. I saw people being genuinely, really joyful, even during hard stuff. And that was astonishing to me. And there was, more than just the work and the school and the home and the homework and the sports and the activities and bed and go to bed and get up the next day and do it all again, right? There was more there and I could not get enough of it. So I started, of course, reading and following and listening and meeting and growing. But soon enough, I was hitting these expectation walls. It kind of, it reminded me of Black Friday morning, and you see these pictures of these people like lined up at the big department stores, and their faces are all smooshed at the walls, and that's how I kind of felt running into these expectation walls. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of these, you can't do that, or no, you can't think that way, or these expectations that people had of what I was supposed to do. I used to have a whole house decorated in a way that I thought I was supposed to have it decorated in. I didn't even like anything in that house, but I was like, oh, this is what people say should go here, so we should put it there, right? The shoulds were ruling my life. And I had all of the growing pains of stepping out along the way, and it was hard. It's hard to step out of the herd. It is hard to step out of the herd. And not just me, but my family did too, because this wasn't just me going through this. We were going through this as a collective, as all 6 of us. People around us often refer to us, and we have a hashtag, if you will. I almost made the hashtag sign in my head, but anyway, and we're known as the Happy Hardens. And I think it's kind of funny because it's not that we're always happy. That's not true, but we always do choose happy. And there's a very big difference in that. So we can catch ourselves when we're not in the happy, right? And we can't be happy all the time. No one can be happy all the time, but we can choose happiness. Find the joy. But anyway, so I started doing all these things and definitely running into these pressures. And I felt like everywhere around me, I just saw these overworked, exhausted, and frustrated people. And I just started saying those what ifs, what if? Like, wouldn't it be nice if? And, parents, which were teaching the same thing to their kids, I started hanging around with. I was like, let's check this out, right? I knew how valuable a child's thoughts and actions and their input could be when they were challenged and given space to truly thrive, because I saw it in my own kids. I saw it in my own kids, and at the different kids at their school, I saw them too. We often went to these, I don't know, different kinds of schools. I never felt quite not satisfied, that's not the word, quite settled in where our schools were, and which leads to our education journey, which is a whole other story that we'll get to. But so I said, though, what if I break these chains and break away from the herd, right? I was starting to feel a little bit of those growing pains, but I was like, you know what? What if we just break those chains? And we had these discussions together as a family, even our littlest ones. She was 3, 4, 5. And when we were having these big discussions with her, along with all of her sisters, and we would sit down together and talk. And I would ask, what if I teach my kids? What if I teach my kids self-led discipline and leadership skills, the ones that I'm learning now in my 30s and my 40s, some people even into their 50s, 60s, 70s? What if we take that information, transplant it, and put it into their childhood so that this core beliefs, these mindsets, these skills that they're building in their childhood, that will one day be their reflex responses because they are set in like concrete. What if we put all of that leadership and self-led discipline into their childhood so that when they leave home, they're like ready for the races, they're ready to go? And what might have taken me 10, 20, 22 years to accomplish, they might be able to get done in more, not get done, but reach that fruition with, reach that clarity with, within 6 months to a year, maybe 5 years. It would be amazing. So I ended up following and studying and latching onto mentors all over the place, right? There was moms that homeschooled. I wanted to see what that was like. I was a total like public school kid, K through 12, and then went to a public college. I had no desire to homeschool, but I saw something in the homeschool families, in some homeschool families, I'll put that way, that I just found very intriguing. And so there was people like Jen and Danielle that I really just kind of dove into. I got to know women with grit. There was this woman, Lisa, that used to work for the UN. And man, oh man, I would sit there and listen to her stories and they would just blow my mind, right? And we're just sitting here in a coffee shop and she's telling me about these harrowing life and death stories and missions that she went on. It was amazing. And then there was families that traveled full time. That required a whole different skill set, right? There was writers and speakers and philanthropists and pastors and business leaders, life transformers, and life sitters, right? What do I mean by that? So life sitters, there was this one time, and I've experienced many life sitters in my life, some in family, some as strangers. But there's this one time, it was actually after my stepdad also passed away almost 8 years ago now. So my mom's been widowed twice now in her life. But it was after my stepdad's funeral, which I also called him dad. They had been dating since I was 4. He was in my life since I was 4. So he was also dad. And but after dad died, we went to a casino. And it's Michigan. Any Michiganders out there that are listening, you get it. Casinos are everywhere. And so anyway, we were at a casino and I was sitting off kind of on the side. I was working on a project while everyone was off doing their thing. And it was truly amazing to sit there. And I was visited by 4 different people that came and sat at my table at different times. And I got to just learn their stories, and they were asking what I was doing, and I was telling them, and I would just ask them questions too. But I ran into two men in particular that were there, and without getting too much detail into their story, they were life sitters, meaning they took the definitions that they had of themselves because the world gave them to them when they were 10, when they were 12, and they applied that to the rest of their lives and never did anything else with it. They never tried beyond that point, and they had so many regrets. They were in there. These were two different men. I don't think they knew each other. They came to me at different times. But they were probably somewhere between 55, 75 in there. And it just broke my heart. It broke my heart to hear their long list of regrets. One of them actually, while I was sitting there with them, got a phone call on this little flip phone from his daughter. And it was his daughter telling him that he can't come over that day because there was going to be other people over at the house. And she knows that last time he was over, it didn't go very well. So they have to reschedule in order to have a time that they can just meet one-on-one. And he was broken because of that as I was sitting there with him. So I got to talk with him through that a little bit. But my point is I learned so many lessons from them as well. And I really had an epiphany. So my life truly is in my hands and what I make of it. My life is truly in my hands and what I make of it. Just saying it over and over and over. No excuses. I am the driver. I want you to say that real quick. I am the driver of my life. You are the driver of your life. And guess what? My kids, your kids are the driver of their life. And this time that we're together in this 65-70, which I'll tell you more about that and where that comes from, but that's how many days are in 18 years. And this is their impact zone that we have. It's their training ground that they have, their safe space to explore and fail and be taught and give way to be that driver of their life. And if I can give them the self-led discipline and leadership now instead of later by someone that doesn't know them as well as I do or understand their quirks and unique gifts and set them up with skills and mindsets that can be cemented into their core beliefs, how they believe about themselves and others and the world around them, how can that be changed if we are intentional and so deliberate during this training zone time with absolute joy and choosing that joy? So this way we have the skills in less time, less drama, more joy, right? All the good things, the good boxes that you want to check. And, do you have, just thinking about it now, do you have core beliefs lingering from your childhood that maybe don't serve you today? I know you're all nodding your head. Yes, I know. And I do too. But the more we can limit that, the better. And I realized that teaching these mindsets and skills couldn't just be for parents or couldn't just be for kids. The way to maximize this potential work was to work with the whole family, right? Accountability to each other, relationships with one another, input from one another, stepping up and showing up as a member of the family to train you and help you be a member of this world. And what happens in the home is reflected everywhere else in life, right? You literally cannot separate. It's two sides of one piece of paper. You cannot separate the personal outcomes from what happens in the home. You just can't do it. So I became excited about this idea and started with helping other families. And I started with family wellness because of what we had gone through with my husband. I went on to helping people with homeschool because, by the way, we started homeschooling. That thing I said I would never, ever do. Well, I'm about to encroach on year 7 of it now. And it's been a beautiful experience. I'll do a whole series on education sometime for you. I don't think it's for everyone. Some days I didn't even think it was for me, but it has turned out to be one of the most defining and great places in our home. Mostly because we were able to develop these skills so much more in that setting. And there's other ways you can do that too. But for us, that's what really worked. But I was using and testing these ideas and theories for almost 10 years. And I found the framework that worked for being intentional about the parenting and family path during this 65, 70 and beyond, right? We're not stopping being parents once they turn 18. It's just that our most high impact zone has passed. And an intentional family experience, even through the hard and sticky stuff, and building kids with the tools they will need for life is so important. And the results were amazing. They are amazing. Smiles, joy, like breaking down walls, having breakthroughs, breaking through fears, kids becoming entrepreneurs, leaders, teaching, and seeking growth and responsibility. That was what was beautiful. I began teaching and coaching this work, and similar results flowed for other families too. So I knew I was onto something. And kids were asking to talk, right? Like, hey, mom, hey, dad, can we talk? And these parents were astounded that their kids wanted to talk with them. They were asking for more challenge. They were exploring their interests, and their mindsets changed. They restored the family flow and connection, and understanding was on a whole new level than they'd ever had before with one another. Now, listen, we're still raising our girls. Like I said, they're only 16, 13, 13, and 11 today at this recording. And we face all of the challenges that you're facing right now with parenting today. And these challenges are real. They are very real, very visceral today that we're facing. Not to mention the pandemic that we've been in for the last 21 months, right? But we all have. I'm sorry. We use these tools and we use them daily, and they've truly made all the difference in the world. Our kids have already astonished me, and I would say that even if I wasn't their parent, I promise you. And my clients' kids have astonished me. It truly is such a beautiful thing to watch a child rise. It's so cool. And the transformation in our own family has made the greatest impact on me for sure. But the opportunity I have every day to reach out and touch other families, like I'm hopefully touching yours right now, or at least you as we're sitting on the front porch with our iced tea, but help you just awaken to the potentials and see the walls fall and the connections build and the foundations being laid. Their 65, 70 timers being set and focused forward. That is such a gift. And that is my fire and passion. I don't know if you could tell, but that's my fire and passion. So bringing self-led discipline and leadership into the home today, because our future, their future, your future personally is literally being built in your living room right now.